Very good morning to all.
Good morning.
Hello.
Yes, Brother Anjay. Hello. Mr. Mayank has joined us.
Hello. Mr. Mayank has joined, sir. Mr. Mayank Patel, have you joined, sir? Okay. So, I think Mr. Mayank has joined. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I believe you will be able to hear
Okay.
me.
Yes, yes, sir. Is my voice audible properly?
Yes, it is.
Okay. A very good morning to all who have joined. Respected Dr. Vishal Singh, Principal ADIT and Convener ESII Cell. Hyderabad, Dr. Yashwant Patel, Co-Coordinator ESII Cell, Principals of CVM Constituent Colleges, various head of the departments, various teachers, and dear young innovators. On behalf of Charutar Vidya University's Entrepreneurship, Startup, Incubation, and Innovation Cell, that is ESII Cell, myself, Dr. Viranchi C. Pandya, welcome you all for a webinar on startups, its significance, government support, and role of education institutes. This online webinar is organized by SSL of A.D. Patel Institute of Technology, a constituent college of CVM University. Charutar Vidya Mandal University has 20 constituent colleges with around 10,000 students and more than 400 faculty members. This event is possible with the blessings from Engineer Shree Bhikhubhai B. Patel, President of CVM University, and with constant motivation and support from Dr. Vishal Singh, convener of ESII cell. Hereby, I invite Dr. Vishal Singh to say a few words about ESII cell of CVM University. Sir, please.
A very good morning to one and all. Mr. Mayank, my fellow principals, head of institutions, faculty members, dear students, and future innovators. It is my pleasure to welcome you all on this occasion. Charotar Vidya Mandal University, CVM University, has initiated steps towards encouragement of entrepreneurship, startups, and innovation. In this regard, university has set up a special cell known as ESII cell. This particular cell will be dealing with student startup, entrepreneurship development, incubation center, promotion of innovation, intellectual property rights, association with various industries in order to promote innovation and startups. This is a value addition that will be provided to all the members of CVM University as an encouragement. A full-fledged Fab Lab incubation center will be housed at A.D. Patel Institute of Technology, which would be able to house around 100 seats to begin with. Suitable infrastructure facilities like computers, office staff, telephone facilities, internet facilities will be provided at our center. So all the teachers, students, innovators are welcome to visit our facility and take the benefit of this particular facility. Our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, is encouraging the nation to become Atmanirbhar. This is an initiative by CVM University in same direction with the blessings of President Engineer Bhikhubhai Patel and other office bearers. I hope events like this would go a long way in creating awareness and attraction towards startup and innovation process in our university. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now let me introduce our today's speaker, Mr. Mayank Patel. Mr. Mayank Patel has done BE in Electrical Engineering, MBA in Finance, and PGD in Treasury and Foreign Exchange Management from CFA, USA. Mr. Mayank has more than 9 years of experience in banking and financial services and has completed 12 years as an academician and business incubation professional. He has also received Chartered Financial Analyst from CFA Institute, USA. His academic interests are financial markets, asset pricing, behavioral finance, risk management, and quantitative methods. He specialized in the area of fintech, investment research, corporate finance, and financial activities. Mr. Mayank Patel has presented a number of papers during various conferences and has also attended workshops on econometrics and computational finances. He is a keen follower of political economy, and developments in the field of education. Mr. Patel has been CEO of Center of Advancing and Launching Enterprises, a technology business incubator promoted by EDII. At present, Professor Patel serves at JG University in Ahmedabad as Associate Professor. We welcome you, sir. There is an announcement that there will be a question answer session after the speech of Professor Mayank Patel. Now, I request Professor Mayank Patel to enlighten us with his speech on startups, its significance, government support, and role of educational institutes. Professor Mayank Patel.
Good morning, everyone. And I'm specifically grateful to CVM University, Shree Bhikhubhai Patel, Dr. Vishal Singh, Principal of EDIT, Dr. Yashwant Patel, who has become a very good friend, and all the constituent colleges, principals, fellow teachers, and students. It's a great pleasure on my behalf to address you all about startups, its significance, government support that is available to startups, and what could be the role of educational institutions in supporting growing startups. I have a small presentation which I will be sharing with you. So I'm just switching off the video and sharing the presentation. Please wait for a moment. I hope you are able to see the first slide of the presentation, which is the title slide. What I'm going to talk about is what startups are, what is its significance for a country, for a society, what government is doing in India for startups, and what could educational institutions do for supporting startups. There are three critical elements for any country, any nation, any society for recording its long-term sustainable economic growth. The country, a society needs human resource, well-trained people, well-educated people. It needs capital, but this too is not sufficient. Along with human resource and capital, capital will include again land. It can include plant and machinery. It can include financial resources also, money also. But this too is not sufficient without technology. Technology is something like, if you're a farmer, if you have a tractor, that becomes a representation of the technology. You are a farmer, human resources available, capital is the land that you have, and technology is the tractor you have. Instead of using your own hands, if you're using a tractor, the productivity of your farm would be much more higher, your own productivity will be higher, and the farmer would be economically well off. These three elements are important for long-term sustainable economic growth of any country. If you look at the history of economic prosperity of all the countries, be it Great Britain or United States or China, which has recorded a fantastic economic growth in the last 30 years, this has been achieved solely through technology. Without technology, this is not possible to have long-term sustainable economic growth. Now, what technology is and how, when a technology is combined with a business idea, a potential problem when solved using a technology for which customers are ready to pay can become a very good business. And that is the basis, that is the foundation of startup. If you look at our history also, some 400 years ago, there was a business idea of trading spices with Eastern countries, Eastern Asian countries. And this business idea was floated in Western European capitals. But there were big challenges. The challenges again were how to raise capital, how to recruit human resources, and do we have or do they have technology at that time or not? When multiple heads were put together to solve this particular problem, they came out with a fantastic business organization. They came out with a very innovative business organization. We all know that business organization today as East India Company. East India Company, some 400 years ago, was a startup. It raises capital through a very innovative way where hundreds of people contributed a small amount as a capital, and it was the starting of a joint stock company. Nobody had heard of a company form of doing business. That was an innovative way of raising capital. They also had a better technology. They had a better technology of steamship navigation, better technology of navigating across the world. Their science was much more advanced. When they put these three things together, they came out with a startup which had changed the history of the world, and which in turn had made Britain a very significant economic power of 19th and 20th century. Now, this is, if you look at it, some 400 years ago, East India Company was a startup. Even today, if you look at it, the biggest, the most powerful companies, businesses, be it Google, through which one of its products we are using right now to conduct this webinar, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, Netflix, all of this are startups based on technologies. New ways of raising capital has come, like crowdfunding, private equity, venture capital investment. And these startups today are the leaders of businesses. Now, a lot of people are familiar with this word rather, startups. But they are found of wanting to define what can be, what kind of businesses or what kind of business activities can be termed or identified or as a startup. Various definition has emerged. There is one definition suggested by government. Government of India has suggested one definition. There is another definition generally followed by private equity, venture capital investors. And startups also have their own definition of their activities, business activities. What Government of India considers as a startup? Government of India looks at 3-4 parameters for defining a business as a startup. One of the most critical things that is required for any business to be termed, defined as a startup in the eyes of a government is whether the business has some kind of a technology innovation or not. If the business is driven by technology innovation, if technology innovation is at the core of operating the business, the first condition for government to define the business as a startup is met. The second condition is that the turnover of the company should be less than 100 crores. Third condition is that the company should be younger than 10 years. That means the company should not be incorporated more than 10 years ago when the company is looking for recognition as a startup or registration as a startup with Government of India's portal, Startup India. So these are the three foundations, and one of the critical foundation among the three is technology innovation. Investors do not always are confined, they are not restricted by the definition that government follows for the startup. What does investor look for when defining a startup? Investors do look at technology innovation, patent, copyright, technology application when they are considering investment in a startup. But in addition to this, they also look at certain other things. They specifically do not look at what is the turnover and how young or the old the company is, how young or old the business is. What they generally look at very keenly is whether the business is scalable or not. Now, this is a very important word, scalability. Scalability is considered very critical for the success of the startup, for reaching out to the mass customer or client base very easily. But again, scalability needs to be understood very detailed, very much detail. What scalability means is that if I'm running a business where my turnover is 20 crore, for reaching this turnover, sales of 20 crore, I have employed, let's say 200 people, and I have invested 10 crore of capital. If I want to grow my turnover and subsequently the profit from 20 crore to 40 crore, and to do so, I have to employ 200 more people. My employee will become 200 to 400. And if I have to invest additional capital of 10 crore, then the business is not considered scalable. A startup is considered scalable if it can reach out to large number of consumers, large number of clients, increases sales turnover with limited or marginal increment in capital and marginal increment in people they are employing. If you remember, when WhatsApp was acquired by Facebook, the valuation was of WhatsApp was $20 billion. But the number of employees that the WhatsApp had at that time was less than 90. Some records says they had only 20 employees, some records says they are only 55 employees, but I'm just considering they would be having not more than 100 employees. And the capital invested was much more smaller compared to the valuation and compared to the customers, number of customers they were serving. They were serving at the time more than 2 billion customers. 2 billion customers served by less than 100 people with a valuation of 20 billion. This is a scalable business. If I pick up a recent example of look at the banned app now of TikTok. TikTok was followed or used actively by nearly 30 crore Indians. But to serve these 30 crore Indians, which is as much as, let's say, the number of customers SBI would be having, State Bank of India would be having. State Bank of India has 15,000 branches across India, nearly 1 lakh plus employees to serve these 30 crore customers. But TikTok didn't have 15,000 branches, did not had nearly 1 lakh employees to serve this 300 million or 30 crore customers. This is the difference between a scalable startup, which investors are generally looking for, and a non-scalable business. Startups also see themselves differently from other businesses. Startup, according to a widely held perception, is any business if it requires external financing in the form of equity, in the form of shares investment, is considered a startup. Any business, if it requires external funding, external financing, is a startup. So these are the three different perspectives of looking at a business which is driven by technology and defining it as a startup. Startups are very important. As I mentioned, economic prosperity recorded by almost every country is driven by startups. If you look at it, in last 3 to 5 years, almost every wealth creator business is a startup business. Nearly 25% of wealth in US has been created by startups like Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Netflix. This is the economic significance of startup. Then there is a technological significance, importance of startup. What happens is, let's say if a large corporate starts a big factory, it becomes good investment for significantly long time. In Gujarat, we have in Jamnagar one of the largest petroleum refinery and one of the most complex petroleum refinery. But once this refinery is set up, its technology will remain stagnant, same for next 30, 40 years. What becomes a stagnancy for large corporate becomes a big problem if no new technology comes for the society, for the country. Startups come up with new technologies. Startups come up with new technologies which improve productivity, which add to the wealth. If you look at it, almost all new technologies have come from startups, or startups have used all new technologies. Startups also have social significance. If you look at it, there has been a tremendous change in our society in the way society looks at entrepreneurs, businessmen, or young people coming out with their business idea and suggesting a startup. Some 20, 30 years ago, startup was not a word which we used to use regularly, but today it has become a regular feature. Young people, fresh graduates from technology institution, they have a conscious decision whether they want to come out with their startup business or they would like to take a regular career or a job or a service. This is the change. Society also has changed. In US, this is one of the most significant and very important factor. In US, if an individual tries a startup and fails, it is considered as a failure of the business, not as the failure of the person. This kind of mindset inspires the person who may have failed in his first initiative to come to make lessons, learn lessons from the first effort, not repeat the same mistake again in the second effort, and come out with a different business or a new startup, which may perhaps become very successful. This is the significance of startups, economic, technological, and social. Startups are also significant from strategic perspective, from national defense perspective or Atmanirbhar initiative that our government has taken recently. Startups provide new technologies which can solve problems of government, problems of society, problems of businesses, problems of individual, make money by solving the problem, create wealth, and improve productivity, improve standards of living, reduce wastage, make you healthier. All of this benefit comes from the strategic importance of startups. Because of this, startups are very important. They are strategically big contributor for national wealth. Government supports startups, especially in countries like India. Government plays a big role in supporting startups. Not only government, even corporates also support startups. But government has the biggest resources, the most widest resources, and the biggest acceptability when they are offering support to startups. In India, we have 3 layers of government. We have a local government, municipal corporations, we have state governments, and we have central government or government of India. Startups get supported at least at 2 layers across India now. Startups started getting support from Government of India almost 25 or 30 years ago. Before the word startup was suggested, there was another word called science and technology enterprises. Now we don't use such a long word, right? We use the word startup. Government of India, through its Department of Science and Technology, had established science and technology parks in few states across India. Today we have some 6 or 8 science and technology parks in India. And the primary motive when this science and technology parks were started some 25 years ago was to support businesses which are driven by innovations in science and technology. In 2016, the Startup India initiative was launched with an announcement by the Prime Minister, none other than Prime Minister. That shows its significance. Startup India. Startup India was a platform, an initiative supported by a department of Ministry of Commerce and Industries. This department is called DPIIT, Department of Promotion of Industries and International Trade. This initiative created an environment where startups get recognition, startup gets education. This Startup India initiative provides a lot of courses also if you want to understand. This platform also brought investors in touch with startups and startups in touch with investors for raising funds for sustaining themselves in the initial years. This initiative also brought incubators, education institutions as a supporter or as an ecosystem enabler for the growth of startups. Department of Science and Technology has come out with an umbrella scheme called NIDHI. Its full form is National Initiative for Developing and Harnessing Innovation. NIDHI scheme. Under NIDHI scheme, a number of initiatives has been started. NIDHI has a scheme where education institutions receive grant from Government of India to start incubators, which gets grant for the operations from Government of India for the first 5 years. There is another scheme called NIDHI SSS, which is Seed Support System. Under this scheme, through incubators, Government of India provides equity and debt investment or debt funding to startups. This investment generally is in the range of 25 lakh to 1 crore. some corpus is given to the incubator, let's say in the range of 2 crore to 8 crores, or sometimes even 10 crore. Out of this corpus, the incubator invests in startups. So out of, let's say, 10 crore, some 40 startups get supported, or let's say up to 100 startups can get supported through incubators. There's another scheme under the Nidhi umbrella is called Prayas, promoting young and aspiring startups. Under Prayas also, through incubators, startups get equity funding. There's another scheme called Entrepreneur in Residence, EIR. This is generally the entry-level scheme. If, let's say, there is a startup enthusiast in a technology institution which also has an incubator, the startup enthusiast wants to work on his technology idea, and for which he requires some financial support for 1 or 2 years. That financial support in the form of monthly fellowship is given under Nidhi Entrepreneur in Residence program. Under this program, the entrepreneur selected, the startup enthusiast selected, will receive 30,000 rupees per month for 1 year, which can be extended to another year also. During that 1 year, the startup enthusiast or the team is expected to come out with a technology innovation, which then after 1 year can be converted into a business idea or a startup. These are the schemes or support mechanism through Department of Science and Technology. In addition to this, Government of India also has now an agency or an organization called Atal Innovation Mission. Through Atal Innovation Mission, Atal Incubation Centers, AICs, has been started in education institutions in order to support startups. Ministry of Electronics and IT, this is another ministry of Government of India which has supported startup through investment. This ministry has invested in number of venture capital funds some 30 years ago, with a sole objective that those venture capital funds would be investing in electronics related startups. So these are at least 3 departments that I'm suggesting here of Government of India or arms of Government of India, which is supporting startups financially, through incubation, through recognition by Startup India, and through connecting investors, mentors with the startups, and also providing education opportunities for startups. If you look at the another layer of government, which is the state government. Yesterday, some 2 days ago, Government of Gujarat was ranked as #1 state for startup ecosystem in India. 3 departments of Government of Gujarat have taken initiatives to support startup. Department of Education has come out with something called Student Startup and Innovation Policy, SSIP. Many of you, my fellow teachers and colleagues, would have heard about this. Through this initiative, grants has been offered to education institutions to support student technology innovations at the initial stage, to help students file for patents, copyright. It also supports academics, faculty members in developing their skills to support startups. This is one initiative by the Department of Education. Department of Education has also come out with an organization called iHub in Ahmedabad, which is one of the incubation or pre-incubation facility supported by Department of Education of Government of Gujarat. Department of Industries and Mines also has a scheme called startup assistance program through nodal institutions. Department of Industries and Mines, through its Industries Commissionerate Office, has approved some 30 education institutions as nodal institutions. These nodal institutions are tasked to collect applications from startups for financial support from Government of Gujarat. These nodal institutions collect applications which then are scrutinized, and then these applications are forwarded to Industry Commissioner's Office, where there is a cell created called Startup Cell. There are 4 officers working under this cell in Industries Commissioner's Office. They evaluate the application through experts. They select the application for funding or grant support at 2 stages. The first stage of support is something called prototype grant. Till few months ago, this grant amount was 10 lakh rupees, but recently this grant amount has been increased to 15 lakh rupees. 15 lakh rupees, this is the grant given to selected startups for coming out with their prototype. This is a grant. There is no obligation to pay back the money. Government does not take partnership, equity share in any business. No questions are asked. In last 5 years, nearly 250 plus startups have been offered prototype grant. If the prototype is successful, the startup is offered another 15 lakh rupees for marketing development. To market the product, look for sales opportunities, and become a full-fledged business. So in all, 30 lakh rupees is provided by Government of India, Government of Gujarat's Department of Industries and Mines for startups. And there is a track record. 250 plus startups have received this amount. Department of Science and Technology of Government of Gujarat also has startup support program, but it's of a different type. Department of Science and Technology offers various subsidies on the rent that the startups pay for their business premises, subsidies on stamp duty for registration of their business, subsidy the internet connections that they may be using. This Department of Science and Technology, also has an incubator in Savli of Baroda, which is called Savli Technology Business Incubator, STBI. This incubator specializes in biotechnology related support to startups. This incubation center is equipped with one of the best biotechnology laboratory facilities in Gujarat. So this is how Government of India and Government of Gujarat is supporting startups. Now, if you look at it, government has taken a bigger initiative, but corporates also support startups. Large corporate, especially those who have huge sales, support startups through something called corporate social responsibility, CSR activities. A part of their CSR fund can be utilized through incubators to offer grant to startups. During my working with Cradle EDI, we had channelized this CSR fund from HDFC Bank, GVFL, and Yes Bank for supporting startups. This is again a grant. There is no loan, no equity taken from the startup. Corporates also act as the client of startups. One of the biggest challenge for startup is to sell their product, sell their services. So when you have a ready-made large corporate, reputable organization, company becoming your client, nothing like it. This is the biggest contribution in the success of the startup. Corporate has become clients to startups. Corporates also become investor. Corporates also become mentor. Yes Bank used to run a Yes Scale acceleration program for fintech startups. Reliance Industry in last 4 years has acquired or invested into more than 20 startups. Many of the applications, apps that you see on Jio's platform are startups that Reliance Jio acquired in last 2 to 4 years. So corporate becomes an investor. Corporates also mentor startups in the initial period when they are facing one of the biggest challenge of survival. Mentoring is very important. Mentoring ensures that the startup do not fail because of good advice, because of the absence of direction. Education institutions play the biggest role in coming out with the startup, in providing education which enables students to come out with the startup, and as the birthplace of startups. If you look at it, Google was started in an education institution, Stanford University. Facebook started in Harvard. Even Microsoft's initial days were in Harvard. Bill Gates was a student of Harvard University. He had this idea, he dropped out and started Microsoft. Education and R&D initiatives are the foundation of startups. Startups which are driven by technology innovation, and technology innovation takes place in technology laboratories. Technology laboratories are available with education institutions. So education institutions are the drivers. They are the birthplace. They are the springboard. Springboard helps a person to jump high, right? Education institutions also plays the same role for startups. Startups takes birth in an education institute and takes a high jump using the facilities that are provided by education institution. In order to augment, in order to enhance education institutions' role as enabler of startup ecosystem, Government of India, Government of Gujarat, as I explained earlier also, have supported incubation facilities, patent and education facilities of various institutions across India. They have recognized the role, and we understand the role that education institutions play in startups. I believe that without education institutions, the number of startups, the kind of startups that we see would be much more less. Education institutions which have a huge contribution in the number of startups that we have today across India. I stop at this stage. I will be happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much, sir. If anybody is having questions, they can ask. Hello.
Yeah, you may write also the question in the chat box. I can respond on that also.
Hello, sir. Manoj here.
Yes, Manoj.
Yes, sir. I heard that you were talking about that all the biggest companies started in like universities and colleges like Harvard and all that.
Yeah, some of the biggest startups that
Some
we
of the
see
biggest
today,
companies.
like Google
Yeah,
or
exactly. Because,
Microsoft or Facebook.
yes, sir. And so, what are the opportunities in India, like in the basic level, like small students in schools and colleges can develop an idea and then they can go forward?
Especially students in colleges or colleges which are engineering colleges, which are technology institutions, have a huge scope of coming out with a startup, I believe. And why I think so? One is startups, by the very definition, are driven by technology innovation. If you have a sound technology education, that is the beginning of coming out with a startup idea.
Okay.
Once you have an idea, you can approach to your faculty member whom you are in regular touch because of regular attendance or meeting in the institute. They are the first people with whom you will be sharing your idea. Second, you'll be sharing your idea with your classmates, batchmates. So you have a ready-made environment available in education institution to come out with an idea.
Okay.
Now, if you look at it, I have, because of the interaction in SSIP and because of the interaction with many students that we have on a regular basis, we look at it almost 80 to 90% of the people have a startup idea when they are about to complete their graduation.
Yes. Sir, like my problem is, if we have a startup idea, then what we do is we approach to different private companies, or like we do give different proposals to everyone, and then we figure out, yes, we can hire some funds from there, and then we can grow our startup and we can collaborate. So, is there any government opportunity that gives a platform? We put our ideas over there directly, and then.
See, I have shown you, I have given a list of platforms of government also and corporates also through which you can receive initial money to convert your idea into a business. And a lot of education institutions also play a role in connecting you with the government. Right. Education Department of Government of India has SSIP initiative, but through your institute, you get benefit of that initiative.
Okay, right.
Apparently, you will have to compete with others also now, right? Just like you have to compete. Yes. So if you go through that competition, prove yourself, and you will receive the support.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, sir. I'm satisfied from your answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I see a question by one Urvesh Chaya in the chat box. The question is, do you think that startup and innovation should be part of formal curriculum in education institutions? Yes, I think it should be part of formal curriculum. But business is one aspect which you learn a lot by practicing. There is there are a number of steps being taken right now to bring startup and innovation in formal curriculum, and you will see a few years down the line that there will be courses being offered in this area. You can take those courses and come up with it. But even if you have not taken these courses and you have a startup idea, I don't think you will be hampered. Start practicing it. There are fantastic ecosystem. You will be able to meet mentors. You will be able to meet potential investors if you start working on your idea and give time to your idea. In Gujarati, we say, it takes 1,000 days for a business to see some success. So if you have a startup and innovation idea, give some time to it, at least 2-3 years. Then there is a question, what are the scope of architectures and Ayurvedic students? There is equally good scope for architecture and Ayurvedic students. In fact, our habitat, the places that we live in and the places that we work, has the scope of technology being used. 1 year ago, I came across a startup which was supported by IIT Gandhinagar, and it was a startup working in 3D printing of building. They had developed a 3D printer which can construct a house. And the biggest advantage was that the house can be constructed in 4 days. Look at it. Huge time saved. This is the one idea I'm just giving in the area of architecture. Similarly, I think Ayurvedic students also because of huge, very long history of Ayurvedic medicines. I'm sure you can come out with startup ideas in that as well. If I take another question, how to develop business verticals for a startup to raise multiple revenue sources at micro level. Is it possible? Yes. But if you look at it, Raktim, generally you will have verticals in large businesses. So once you are a large business, that means you are a successful business. Then only you will have become large. If you are unsuccessful, you will stop functioning when you are a small entity itself. So startup and number of verticals will not be, this will not go together. A startup will have one focus, one product or few products and services. And focus will be on those products and services also, not a large number of business verticals. But if you have a large number of business vertical in your startup, I think it's possible. You can raise multiple revenues and do it. Then there is a question also that is there any provision to receive fund under startup for finishing school from government agencies? If yes, which agency has to be approached? I would say completion of schooling would come under scholarship, not investment. There are a number of scholarships being offered by governments and charitable trusts, educational trusts. You can look at that. There is another question by Karan Rajpurohit. He is asking, in India, why there is less startups are successful, like 90% fail. This is not the situation with India only. 90% of the startups fail across the world. The fun or the important thing is those 90% who are failing in the business should not consider their failure as a personal failure, but as a business failure. Learn lessons from their failure, come out with a next best opportunity, next startup. Apply those lessons and be successful. Also, there is a question by Anjali Naik saying that is it opportunity for Indian student for startup to done during study period? Yes, you can come out with a startup idea during study period. What you need to focus is or look at it is, can you solve a problem of business or society or consumer? If you are able to solve this problem using a technology that you have understood, learning, then there is a startup idea. Any problem, be it sometimes very simple problems becomes a huge startup businesses. And specifically for microbiology students, yes, as I said, you are a biology student. Look at it. Today we are troubled by a problem of biology. A very microorganism has put us all on a standstill for a long time, right? Microbiology, or I would say biotechnology, has a huge scope of startups, not only just computer science or any other sciences. There's another question is just to inform that there is a 1-year curriculum introduced. I think everybody can see that. Somebody is asking, what is the basis for government agencies to decide the granting of fund of different institutions situated same places? Because I have experienced that if one institution of received fund, then other at the same place area are denied. Apparently, you reach out to one institution, and generally you reach out to your own parent educational institution first. I'm sure you will get the best response from the constituent colleges of CVM University. They will be the first people who will hold your hand, and they will be the first people to introduce you to the other mentoring financial assistance that is available for your venture, your business idea. If there is any other question also, I can take it up.
Thank you very much, sir. I think now there is no questions. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So it was indeed a very informative speech for our young innovators who are eager to convert their innovative ideas into startups. You have indeed explained at each level how government is helping, how the state government is helping, uh, our schools or our institutes are helping. That was very informative. Now I request Professor Devang Shah to propose vote of thanks for today's event.
Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of I like to take the opportunity to thank our eminent speaker, Mr. Mayank Patel, sir, for edifying us on startups and its significance, government support, and role of educational institutions. Your confirmation, being an expert speaker, encouraged participants to actively participate and take maximum knowledge on startups and various government schemes available to nurture the startups. Once again, I heartily thank you, sir. I'd like to express my gratitude to Engineer Sri Bhikhubhai Patel, sir, President, CBM University, for their blessings. I'd like to thank Dr. Natraj, sir, Registrar CBM University, and all other dignitaries of CBM University. I'd like to thank our beloved Principal, sir, and Convener, Entrepreneurship and Startup Innovation Cell, ESII, Dr. Vishal Singh, sir. I'd like to thank Cluster Coordinator, ESII Cell, Dr. Y.D. Patel, sir. I'd like to thank all principals, head of the department, and faculty members of the Constituent colleges of CEM University. I'd like to thank technical team from our institute and CBM University for their technical support for live streaming on YouTube. I'd like to thank all faculty participants, and I also like to thank all my dear student participants for their active participations. Once again, I'd like to thank all who directly and indirectly helped us by making this webinar a grand success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Devang Shah. Here we are concluding this event. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.